So when I was a kid, way back in the 80s, we watched a show called Lady and the Tramp. And even when we didn't watch that show, every year around Valentine's Day, Disney would do a special. And they would always play this particular clip where this scene is, where he's eating the meatballs and the spaghetti with Lady. That's the tramp, okay? Now, no one explained to us what a tramp was. Now, tramp could have meant homeless person, because that was essentially what a tramp was back then. But tramp could also mean someone who was promiscuous, because within the story, this particular character is quite promiscuous. And they allude to that quite a bit. In fact, they teach sexuality throughout the entire show, really. I mean, they talk about mom and dad having a human baby, and they talk about um, different girlfriends and boys and girls getting together and having babies. And that's like a central part of the show. In fact, if you watch that movie, if you go back and watch it, you'll notice there's some subtle racism in there that was taught to us as children. And yet no one was screaming about that. And no one was screaming about the fact that there was a boy chasing a girl, trying to get with her, which is what the whole movie was about. It's about the boy dog chasing the girl dog. Now, if you can't tell which is the boy dog and which is the girl dog, the boy dog is the gray one and the girl dog is the brown one. That's if you haven't, by chance, seen this particular movie in your childhood. But understand, we showed this to children, and this is how we taught children what romance was. Okay? Romance is giving the girl your meatball. Okay? In this movie, that's romance. They could have swapped the girl dog for the boy dog and had the same story, but they didn't. And it would have taught us the same thing, that they were loyal to each other, that they loved each other, that at the end of the day they were protecting the baby from the rat. Spoiler alert. But they didn't. So somehow learning that was okay. But if I would have learned that it was two boy dogs or two girl dogs, that would have been a crime? Why? We teach children about sexuality all the time. And at no point in time when I watched this movie as a child, or even later as an adult, did I think about the fact that the characters were having sex. They were, because by the end of the movie, again, spoiler alert, puppies show up. But even before the end of the movie, there's human people in the movie, and they have a baby also. And there wasn't a baby before, and now there is a baby. Well, that means those people had sex. And they were teaching that to children. But they didn't teach the children about the sex part. They just showed that there's a mom and a dad, and babies show up. And oh, look, we got by, and we were fine. It didn't corrupt us. Well, if we can handle Lady and the Tramp, we can handle two tramps or two ladies. And that's just one example. There's many, many more examples throughout our childhood during the 80s and 90s where there were stories like this. Where there's a guy who wants the girl and goes the extra mile to get her, and at the end of the story, usually the guy gets the girl. Or the girl gets the guy if they're going the other way, but that's a pretty common trope throughout children's entertainment. Children can handle this and be fine. It's the adults that have problems. I just wish I would have seen myself reflected in these characters as a child so I could have made different choices. I didn't even know there was a choice to make. It didn't occur to me that everybody didn't have thoughts in their mind about being the other gender. I thought everybody thought that. And if you're a trans kid, that's a common thought to have, by the way. So if you have a thought in your mind, if you're a boy with girl thoughts or a girl with boy thoughts, which is the best way to explain that to kids, you might be trans. And it's best to find that out when you're a kid and then do something about it. like change your name, change your pronouns, change your haircut, learn what it's like to live that way. Because remember, you can always go back. And I can, kind of. I can go back and be a man now, in appearance. But I hate it. It makes my skin crawl. It's not an existence I want. If I have to go back and live the rest of my life as a man, it would be a very short life. I would ensure that. I wouldn't stick around like this. Anyway, or like that, rather. Anyway, we can teach kids about queerness without hurting anybody and respecting people's ability to be themselves. We just have to accept that we were always here. And we're just as normal as anyone else. We just weren't seen before. But now you can see us. Anyway, Darci's Corner, spreading the trans agenda, which is just equality and being seen. I know. We're a scary lot.